Good morning, boys and girls. It's Pastor Mike from Emmanuel Lutheran Church. And as you can see, I am not in the story room today. I am in my office. I'm going to tell you a story, though, and it's an important story of God's love. But I'm going to need the help of my magic bag to tell this story today. So, first of all, I have my magic bag. And as you can see, my magic bag is empty. There's nothing in there. Empty bag, empty bag. So, this story is about a landowner. He owned a lot of land. He owned a vineyard where he grew grapes. But he didn't have people to work in the vineyard. So he hired Mr. Green. Early in the morning, Mr. Green went to work in the vineyard for a whole day's salary, a whole day's wage. He was going to get paid for the whole day. So Mr. Green went to work in the vineyard. Can you see Mr. Green in there? Well, kind of hard to see, but Mr. Green is still in there. So Mr. Green went to work at the very beginning of the day, and he was working and he was working. The landowner went back out and he found Mr. Blue. But it was now 9 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't early anymore. But he said, I will pay you, Mr. Blue, whatever's right. And so Mr. Blue went to work in the vineyard. And Mr. Blue, see, Mr. Blue is in there, and Mr. Green is still in there. So they were working in the vineyard. See them working in the vineyard. They were working in there. And about noon and then 3 o'clock, the landowner went back out and he found Mr. Red. And Mr. Red said, I'll go to work for you. And so Mr. Red went out into the vineyard to work. See, there's Mr. Blue and Mr. Green. And where'd Mr. Red go? Oh, there's Mr. Red. They were all in there working away, picking grapes in the vineyard. But it was now 5 o'clock. It was almost time to go home. And the landowner found Mr. Yellow. And Mr. Yellow had not worked all day. Mr. Yellow had just been hanging around because no one would hire him. So the landowner said, oh, Mr. Yellow, why are you still here? He said, because nobody's hired me. He said, okay, so what I want you to do is you go and work in my vineyard. So he said, okay. So Mr. Yellow went to work in the vineyard. Well, the landowner said to the manager, the one who ran the whole vineyard, all right, it's time for you to pay all of the workers. So, my goodness. He said, I want you to start with the one who worked just 1 hour. So he went back and he found Mr. Yellow. And he said, I am going to give you a whole day's wage. I'm going to pay you for a whole day. Even though you didn't work a whole day, I'm going to pay you for the whole day. And he was like, yay, I'm so excited. And then he went and he found Mr. Red. And he said, Mr. Red, you didn't work the whole day, but I'm going to pay you for a whole day. Yay! Mr. Red was excited. And then he went and he found Mr. Blue. And he said, Mr. Blue, I hired you at 9 o'clock, but I am going to pay you for the whole day. Yay! Mr. Blue was so excited. He came to Mr. Green. And Mr. Green went, That's not fair. That's not fair. They all got paid a whole day's wage, and I worked a whole day. I ought to get more. I ought to get more. Well, the landowner, he was disappointed in Mr. Green. Said, because all of them had gone into the field, and Mr. Landowner said, I want to be generous. I want to give you all the same because I care for you all the same. Did the landowner care more for the one who had been there all day, Mr. Green? Did he care more for Mr. Yellow, who had only worked 1 hour? No. He cared for all of them and was very generous. That's how it is with God's love. God's love doesn't always seem fair, but it's more than fair because God loves all of us the same. We're all connected in God's love. All connected in God's love. Thanks for coming and sharing this time with me as we join to learn about God's love. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next week. Bye.